Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to our 10-year chat. I'm James,
And John.
and we're co-founders of Big Games Machine, or BGM as we affectionately call it. We thought for our 10-year anniversary, we would interview each other with some Jeremy Paxman style, very deep and insightful questions. If you don't know, we've just hit our 10-year anniversary, or we're celebrating it. So without further ado, John.
Does it feel like we've been doing this for 10 years?
It feels like 20. No, yes and no. I think time's a very relative construct about go too deep about it, but I think 10 years is an astonishing amount of time, and there's a lot of things I haven't personally achieved in that time, like editing my honeymoon videos, which I'm really annoyed about. But on the flip side, yeah, obviously running an agency can often be a stressful experience, so it can feel more like 10 years. Do you have any feeling on that?
Yeah, I think in one sense, it's gone past really quickly, which is a good thing, because I'd say 90% of it has been lots of fun and positive. I think that when we talk about where the business is and where the agency is and where the industry landscape is, I think we've done an awful lot. We've achieved a lot. I think there's a lot more we can do, though. So I think I'd probably say it doesn't feel like 10 years in terms of I don't feel I'm 10 years older and more mature and more responsible, but I probably never will be. Do I feel like if we'd have set goals 10 years ago, would we have hit them? I'd probably say yes.
What do you think sets us apart from other agencies? How have we managed to differentiate ourselves? How's that as a better question?
I think that we came into doing what we're doing with a very deliberate plan to not be the same as other agencies, because for context, you and I have both been like head of marketing, head of product roles, and we've hired multiple agencies, right?
Yeah.
I've personally hired some really great agencies who are now competitors to us. I've worked at lots of agencies. I've got a background of more working in PR agencies than you ever had. You've been marketing, I've been more PR. There's still a lot of just things that agencies don't do that from a business side, from a client side, I want to see. And I think day one, you and I were very aligned on, we want to create an agency which is far more aligned to what a business is actually looking for rather than what PR people think they're looking for. So, and then from that grows the way we do things. So things like the points system, which is really transparent, because PR agencies are really untransparent with their pricing and how they do things and stuff. The way that we've grown to embrace content as the driver for PR. Again, I think everyone's having to go there now, but we've been trying to do that for 10 years. And ironically, we're still trying to get clients to do things 10 years on that were a really bloody good idea on day one. And they're still resistant to it because clients are further behind in the journey than we are. So I think that's fundamentally the thing. But the challenge is always, you've got to talk to us to find that out. I think it's still difficult to explain points of difference when you are just seen as one other agency compared to the rest.
Yeah, I would echo that. I don't want to counter with a very long response, but I broadly agree with you. I think it's about quality and knowledge. I think we pride ourselves on just knowing a huge amount of our subject matter, and we demand that of everyone who works with us, and it comes to them quite naturally. So I think that expertise, whether it's the B2B or consumer, of really knowing what's going on in the industry, benchmarking, knowing our products, what we're working on, so we can instill confidence in the client that we really do get their product. I think that's really important. So then we just throw loads of ideas at them, and on a constant basis. And that seems to be part of our value.
Okay. Yeah, but I go one step further than that, right? I think that when you're in a business or you're in-house, you understand it's fundamentally about sales, right? All PR, all marketing is servicing the job of selling something, whether it's a platform, a technology, a service, investment, whatever, right? It's too easy on the agency side to become disconnected from that business thinking and go, my job is to secure media. Because the question should be, what do we need to do to drive the business outcome? Not just, I'm a PR person, my job is to get media, therefore I will get media. Because as you and I know, very often getting media actually is not the thing that will move the needle. It might be creating content that's going to drive inbound leads or something like that. So I think for me, that's the biggest missing piece still in lots of PR's roles, is having the understanding of what's going on within the business that is leading them to ask for PR.
Okay.
Next. So you and I have been doing this for 10 years, hence this video. We started by moving out of another agency and deciding we were going to do something together. And when we started in 2014, it was you, me, our respective kitchen tables, because we couldn't afford an office, and 2 clients. What, if you can think back then, what was your ambition at that point?
I can't say with any degree of clarity. I had most of that ambition. I think we're quite similar in the sense that we just want to be profitable, make money, and things will go from there. I've changed my mindset somewhat since, but I think then it was just almost survival mode, that snowball effect. I think one of the biggest things we've obviously learned in 10 years is it's just incremental growth. You get more case studies, you get a better reputation, bigger word of mouth, people recommend you. So I think I have a memory, actually, I may contradict myself here. I think I wasn't realistic about growth. I think I was more ambitious or thought we were going to secure more clients than we did. And whether that was a sense of entitlement or not, I'm not entirely sure. But I think it was definitely to grow into an agency and have a number of staff. But if you consider the fact as well where we were then with Big Ideas Machine and doing technology, PR, and a bit of games, and how it just totally transformed into being 100% games and a completely different brand, that was not anything that I could have foreseen at the time. So characterized by lack of ambition and also unrealistic expectations, coupled with that ambition as to getting far more clients, because they totally cancel each other out. There you go.
Yeah, I would say the first imperative was, please don't make me have to go and get another proper job working for somebody else.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that was the overriding thing, is please don't make me go and get a job. And I totally agree with you. I think you always learn at one point in life that all those people that say, oh yeah, no, you should totally do your own thing because I'll definitely give you some work, they're all liars. They don't do it. They might do it like 10 years later when you've proven yourself. But it never comes out the woodwork like that. And definitely, I think, even if we are hard on ourselves now in terms of strategy and understanding sort of business direction, stuff like that, we were really winging it, basically, based on the belief that we were doing great work, I think. And in that sense, that's something we've always done. And that has brought us to where we are, really.
Very good. Staff. Obviously, like for our staff are absolutely the number one thing.
You're saying that because they'll watch this, right?
Yeah, I've been told to say it. It says it in my management handbook.
It's HR.
I mean, we do, and anecdotally, it sounds very self-congratulatory, but the evidence speaks for itself. We have very low turnover. I joke about the fact that when we first put in the contracts together 10 years ago, looking for benefits, I threw in the sabbatical one, saying if you've been with us for more than 5 years, you can have a month paid sabbatical, thinking nobody would ever make it to 5 years. Just like for every year you do, you get extra holiday. And we've now got 2 members of staff who've got far too much holiday and a month's paid sabbatical that we have to deal with. What would you say is, because we can only talk from our own perspective, but we've obviously, you and I have worked for other companies. So I've worked for some pretty bad people and I've seen bad behavior and stuff. What do you think the secret is to happy staff? What do you think from our perspective? Why do you think we've managed to retain people and kept them happy?
I think it comes down to trust, to be honest. You hire people because you genuinely think they're good. And so let them go and be good. I think that the challenge to being a good manager and leader, which is something that I think that you and I both work quite hard on. And I'm, you know, if I look back to how I used to be. It was, again, it was just basing everything on being a nice person and trusting people and guiding them.
Mm.
And I think that was a good path to go on. But that's it, right? You know, as the agency's grown and you and I can't be doing everything, you have to trust people to do a good job and to represent the values of the agency, which happen to be our values, right? There's a sense of kind of personal endorsement behind it as well. We're still a small enough agency where we still have a very flat structure. Hierarchy exists in terms of experience and decision making, but it doesn't exist in terms of who has a voice. And I think that we manifest that really strongly. Yeah, it's just that. It's interesting that you said you experienced bad leaders and managers, because to be honest, if I look back on my career, maybe I've been really lucky, but I've mostly really great ones that have helped me to manage the way I do, which is hopefully to model behavior that you want to see in other people, model quality. You'd have to ask people what they think, though, because I could be thinking that I'm better than I am, or different or whatever, but can turn around and we can look at the fact that, as you say, we have people that genuinely say that they like working here. And there was a really nice thing said to me actually the other week when we were on our offsite, and somebody said to me, you guys must feel really good that 3 people on the team are buying houses at the moment. I'm like, okay. I'm thinking, is this a really weird pay request? But they were like, yeah, you hadn't shifted the agency to being remote and trust people to work from home and everything like that. They couldn't be getting on the housing ladder because they'd have to be in London doing the normal agency thing. So what it was to me was a really great piece of feedback that you wouldn't get in a normal company. You wouldn't sit there and go, oh, what's my benchmark for great staff? Oh, it's the fact that they're buying their own property. But it's an outcome. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, and once again, to your point, you can think you're a legend in your own mind, but you don't really know what people think about you. Not about me personally, but I just
you could say you are on LinkedIn, and then it's true.
I think it's all about a couple of things. One is I was always told, hire people better than you are. And I believe that. I think you have to leave your ego at the door when you own a company or you manage people. Like, just check it out, throw it out, and just go, I'm hiring people better than I am, that know more than me in many aspects and regards, and I'm going to defer to them if they've got something that they can freely say they think they've got a better idea, and then you also empower them to go and run with it, and that sense of ownership. Dan Pink, he's got that amazing video on YouTube, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates People. I'd tell anyone, if anyone actually ever watches this video of you and I talking, I would say to go and watch it. It's incredible. It's just basically about giving people something they care about and letting them run with it and letting them feel. And that's why you've got all these open source projects of software engineers who are just giving up their time doing nothing because it's a passion, right? And so we indulge that in people. But totally what you said is about respect. We talk to everyone equally, whether they're the most junior position in the company or account director, everyone gets spoken to the same. Nobody gets patronized. And I just think it's about being authentic and not having a climate of fear. And we don't shout. We've never done it. I take the blame with clients. Always, I default to taking ultimate responsibility. Jocko. But it's all those things that we'll never throw staff under the bus. Like, we deal with it privately. We don't shout. We don't have any climate of fear. I think all these things are really important to making sure people feel valued, listened to, and respected. And that's all I can say really on that one.
Well, this is one for both of us, right? This is probably the last but one question, I'd say.
Go on.
Pick out a couple of highs and lows for the past 10 years. Could be anything.
God.
Could be things you've learned, could be particular projects, clients.
I'll start on a low. I think, if I'm being really honest, I felt really despondent at times when the work just isn't coming in, where you're just about breaking even. It's not a particular point in time. It's just where things are slow, they're not coming in. Obviously, as an agency owner, I care, number one, about not feeding myself, about feeding everyone else. Obviously, God forbid, you never really want to lay people off. It's your worst nightmare. So just making payroll some months, and that's a general angst or a general low that any other agency owner will associate with. And the thing that I thought was going to be a low, but turned into a high, was COVID. Because obviously COVID, everyone went into, oh God, we all got to go and work from home. The world's changing. And actually what happened was, people work from home. We found out it was fantastic and we've kept it. And so that's actually turned into one of my greatest highs, was actually, I think, our transition to being remote. For me,
Yeah.
possibly our greatest high. And it very much also ties into what you said before about enabling people to buy their own properties. That directly linked to that, as well as people having that very valuable work-life balance, which ties once again into what we were just talking about, people feeling happy and trusted. So I think actually COVID for us was definitely pivotal, because it would have been a low and we had to trim back and say to people, would you take a pay cut for a bit? We're worried we're going to lose clients. And actually quite quickly we found out things were buoyant. We gave everyone the money back, and then the working from home then became a huge positive. So I think it all mushed in together. For me, COVID was a great example of the highs and the lows, aside from winning a really big client and stuff like that, which would also be really good highs. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually, because I think partly to pat ourselves on the back is that we realized really quickly that it was a point at which we needed to have a really good look at what we were doing and think forward for if and when we came out. Because as you say, we had to make really fast decisions to make sure that things were still given the best chance to survive should we lose more work and things like that. And I think we made a series of decisions which have proved to be really good ones. And I think lots of people didn't do that, and they just went, oh, we'll batten up the hatches and then we'll just go back to normal. And I think, as you see with the shift on remote working and business practices and things, it's not going back to normal. Things were overdue to shift, and that was the impetus to do it. I think the highs and lows are it's an obvious thing to say, but are very emotive. It's when you are doing really fantastic work, and then because we work with so many startups and early stage companies, they run out of funding, and you know that you're doing great work. They know you're doing great work, but it's out of everybody's control as to whether that continues. That's always a real kick in the teeth when that happens. If you've done a piece of work which the client's not happy with, or the client's not a nice one to work with, the end of that relationship is fine and understandable and you get over. But when it's somebody who you're really rooting for and enjoy working with and everything's positive, but it's a cash flow situation, that's really tough. And I think the highs are growing the team, working with really interesting clients, and ultimately when people come back around again, when we get recommendations, when we get to feedback, it's like we exist on those crumbs of like compliments that you don't get very much, and when you get them, they're great. So yeah, I think that's ultimately it. I think it comes down to the fact that pretty much every day is pretty interesting, and it's rare when you and I get a run of days where everything is like horrible decisions and difficult clients. Usually within that there's something really fun, or the team does something really cool and stuff like that.
I've got one for you.
Go on then.
What do you think is the secret to a happy client? What is it we do, or what's the behaviors we exhibit, or you feel we've exhibited, that would lead to us having some clients staying with us for a period of years?
I honestly think that is decided it's very Malcolm Gladwell, right? I think if you meet a client and the chemistry is right from day one, it will be right going on, right? And a couple of anecdotes around that. You and I have worked with clients where the chemistry has been really good. Over time, something's gone wrong on that account, right? The work's not been aligned. Somebody's not asked the right questions. Deadlines have been missed. And it's savable because there's a relationship in which somebody is willing to say, do you know what? People make mistakes, and you go with it, and it's about the long term. If you don't have that chemistry, at that point, people can just throw their toys out the pram and go, I'm just going to go somewhere else, right? So I think first and foremost, if the chemistry is right between the individuals and the match of company requirements to what we deliver is right, it's right. And I think that every time that you and I look back, and the wider team looks back at clients that have churned quickly, that alignment was never there.
Yeah.
every single time we look back and we go, we knew that wasn't right. We shouldn't have taken
Yeah.
it. We should have
Yeah.
stood by our guns. And I think over time,
And
that's the biggest thing that's
yeah.
changed with us is 10 years ago, we had to take that work on. And now that we
Yeah.
know from experience that actually
Yeah.
it's not got a long-term future with that kind of clients.
Yeah, I once again agree with you. I think it's having the confidence, not arrogance, but confidence to know what is going to work in a client relationship and having a very robust process up front as we do to ask the client the correct questions, have multiple calls where we're sussing them out a lot of the time, chemistry, like you said, understanding their expectations, and we spot up front if there is a misalignment. So that will usually lead to a client that's going to like us. And we do say no. We have the confidence to go, we're really sorry. We don't think this is going to work. So that confidence we've got to steer things and not be entirely subservient, I think is an important change in engineering having good clients that will be happy clients.
If you think back, it just pops into my head. If you think back probably 5-6 years ago, we probably said no to 50% of games projects coming to us because they were overly driven. Mobile back then was casual, and you just can't do anything for them. Too many people just say yes and take the money, and that wasn't good for us.
Yeah, I think we always joke we'd be a lot richer, or we not richer, just have money if we said yes to everything, because we do have a very high no rate still, because we know ethically we're not going to get the results people want us to get.
Also, just add, it goes back to my earlier point about when you asked me about what sets us apart. You know, I learned that from a couple of things I did at Edelman, where you got pulled into very high level conversations with companies that were operating in stealth and these sort of very cool behind closed doors meetings and stuff. If you are able to sit down with somebody and show that you understand the business requirements for them to be a success, and they may not be traditional PR bits of work, right? They might be branding, they might be advertising plans, which we don't really do, but we can show that we will help them be a success. That's a big point of difference as well. I think any CEO that knows their PR agency is pulling in the right direction rather than just being a cost center, that will make a big difference.
I think the other thing that people have liked about us and that we value, and we haven't really mentioned it today, and it goes back to about the differentiator, and I can't talk for other agencies, is we just don't BS people. It's not in our DNA. We're very frank, sometimes to our detriment, not rude, but we tell people things they don't want to hear. We stick to our guns. We are highly consultative. And I think that's quite refreshing for people when you have a very deferential agency that blows smoke up someone's behind, tells them all the stuff they want to hear and how wonderful they are. And that doesn't really help them. And that's the antithesis of how we behave with anyone in upfront conversations all the way through to actually being in the client relationship. We won't die on a hill over things. We will defer if the client's adamant about doing something, but we will robustly tell someone and give justification for why we think they shouldn't be doing something or that they should be doing something differently. And I think that's the mark of a good client relationship, is that two-way respect thing that I spoke about with staff as well earlier. Is I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of bad clients, because that's another conversation. But I think the difference between a good client and a bad client for me is clearly, once again, respect. A good client values advice, respects us, treats us on the level as a consultant, the operative word there being consulting. A really bad client, which we try and get rid of up front, is that very horrible master-servant type relationship. It's like, you do my bidding, it's my road or the high road, and that's not going to last for us, and we'll walk away from it. Anyway, that was just my extra bit, really.
Turning into sort of a therapy session for you there, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. We have final questions.
I'm going to ask one more question, which you and I both get one answer to. If you could challenge one misconception about what we do, and when I say we, I mean PR, marketing, the function that we perform.
Yeah.
If you could challenge one misconception, what would it be?
I think the thing that because we do B2B and consumer, I think my misconceptions lie almost entirely on the B2B side of things, albeit our consumer team's fantastic and gets awesome results all the time with media and influencers. I think on the B2B side, the absolute consistent number one misconception is B2B PR marketing must be predicated upon ongoing media coverage. Unfortunately, you've heard me say this 1,000 times to people on biz dev calls, but without a shadow of a doubt, my mission when I'm talking to people on the B2B front who want to work with us is I'm always saying to them, if you're going to hire us based on monthly media coverage, you will be firing us after about 3 months. It's not going to work. And they have to adopt a much more sophisticated multi-channel strategy, which I shall not go into now because this is not the place. But I think that's my thing that I'm battle against consistently, because I think on the consumer side, it's quite clear cut. When someone approaches us, they're like, we want to launch a game. They know they want media and influencers and whatever other things. But I think the only thing on the consumer side that we still battle with is that it's a direct response tool. The overall PR, brand awareness, brand building somehow can be causally linked directly to sales. So you'll get people coming on the consumer side almost mathematically saying, I had media coverage here in IGN or GameSpot or Rock Paper Shotgun or whatever, but I'm not seeing my Steam sales immediately going up. Your campaign is therefore a failure. And so actually on the consumer side, there is that misconception. We have less, we still have the battle against that.
I think that's a really good one. I'm going to pick maybe not a misconception, but it's something that I see strategically done wrong, and I would like to see more people do it differently. And that's people defining their PR budget based on how much money they've got left after everything else, rather than treating it as something which, if it's done well, will actually deliver revenue. But the problem is I think we see it quite often is, and it goes back to good clients get bad clients, but people define their PR budget by basically getting to the end of their product development cycle, going, how much are we going to spend on marketing? And then going, oh, some of that will be PR. And actually, if people thought about it further up the food chain, then you could be actually thinking about how PR is going to be working to better support marketing and generate revenue, in which case it's worth investing more in. So I suppose it's a roundabout way of saying, like, unrealistic budgets is a big thing. I can look back to spreadsheets from clients in 2002, and I think agencies are being paid less now than they were then. So I think that you and I know, right, people will happily chuck £100,000 a paid influencer campaign, and then we can have a big debate over $4,000 for a piece of PR work, right? And it's because one drives, to your point, one drives instant clicks, which people like measuring, and the other one is this airy fairy thing of brand perception and feeling, which nobody's ever going to really be able to nail down into a nice, easy metric. Yeah, that's my biggest thing. Is probably the same as yours. Is expecting easy wins.
I feel that was very mature and grown up. We should be ending on like a high humorous note question, shouldn't we? If you're sitting here in 10 years' time, what do you want to be saying to yourself? What do you want to have achieved? Is that a good ending question? Oh, BGM, I really love that agency that we sold 8 years ago for billions of pounds. Oh, that was such a good agency. I really liked that when I was there 8 years ago.
I can't imagine 10 years. In all seriousness,
yeah,
I'd be quite happy still doing this in 10 years. I just like us to be 10 years bigger,
I want to fulfill my
rewarded.
dream of being a London walking tour guide. I'd like to be working less and working towards that dream, chat repertoires and stuff like that. I'm not kidding.
So you'd like to be part-time. That's your dream.
I'd like to just indulge more of my passions for history and stuff like that. I agree with you, though. I think as long as there's been growth and other such things. But yeah, 10 years is very hard to conceptualize if you look back at the last 10 years and try and figure out. But I think we've got some pretty good ideas of what we're going to be doing next, which we couldn't possibly reveal here.
That's for another chat. James K., it's been a pleasure, both chatting to you today, but working with you for 10 years. Long may it continue.
Long may it continue. Excellent bants. See you in another 10 years.
All right.
Bye.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.